Hi, and welcome back to Medical Point. This is our fifth lesson. Last week, we wrapped up our virus portion of our cell biology unit, and now we're moving on to the cell membrane portion. This week, we will go over the introductions of the cell membrane. If you have any doubts, feel free to rewatch any sections or pause the video. So, for a review, the cell membrane is what's on the outside of the cell. It can protect our cells from the outside environment and can determine what can enter and leave our cells. This, this thing is known as semi-permeable. Other than the basic function of the cell membrane, there's also the structure which is known as phospholipids. There are two of these, which is why they form the phospholipid bilayer. The phospholipid bilayer is a major part of the cell membrane composition. Phospholipids are the building blocks of the cell membrane, just like how the mitochondria is for the cell. They are essentially composed of three parts: a phospholipid head, glycerol backbone, and two fatty acid tails. The phosphate heads are known to be hydrophilic, which means that they are absolutely in love with water and will do anything to go near it. On the other hand, the fatty acid tails are hydrophobic, which these fatty acid tails are made of long carbon chains which hate water and are terrified of it. Most people will remember this because the root phobic, as in phobia, means fear. Fatty acids will do whatever they can to get as far away from the water as possible. Since these two things are polar opposites, they are known as an amphithetic molecule. Now you may wonder how these two are connected together. There is a glycerol backbone that basically holds both parts together and is, based on the name, called backbone. Now, since these parts are amphithetic, and there's two of these phospholipid layers, and there's water both in and out of the cell, the phosphate heads flip over and form like a boundary for the fatty acetyl to protect them from water. So it's like a cool structure where both of the sides get what they want. Going into more detail about the structure, the fatty acid tail is a carboxylic acid attached to a long carbon chain. There's two of them attached to the head, like mentioned previously. The carboxylic acid has a double bonded O and a hydroxyl group attached to the carbon. Next, we'll go into the glycerol backbone. It's actually a pretty basic structure. It has three carbons attached to three hydroxyl groups, and there's only one glycerol in each of the phospholipids. The last one is the phosphate group, which is the head. There's phosphorus and four oxygens attached to it. Now, the phospholipids on cell membrane are very diverse and can take many different forms, which some examples could be serine, chlorine, etc., etc. Now, previously I said that the phospholipid heads actually form like a barrier for the fatty acid tails, and that's what the molecules or materials go through to get into the cell. And since the membrane is semi-permeable, it only allows specific things to get inside. Now, these phospholipids are packed very tightly, so only small molecules can actually get inside. And since the inside is hydrophobic, only small non-polar things can pass through quickly. This is called passive diffusion. Now, some examples of small polar molecules are gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide, which travel through rapidly. Other things such as water and ethanol, which is like a drinkable alcohol, can also pass through the cell membrane since they're small. But these are polar molecules, which means the inside of the cell, which are the fatty, or the inside of the phospholipid bilayer, which are the fatty acids, do not like it. So although they can still sneak in by only pass, they can still sneak in, but it takes a long time to go through because they're polar. So it takes a longer time to go through the phospholipid bilayer. Now, what about something that's large and nonpolar? Since it is nonpolar, it can still go through, but stuff like benzene is large, which makes it pass through really slowly because of the size. Now, something that's large and polar, you guessed it, cannot pass through for obvious reasons. Now, examples would be like glucose or sugar. Which, what else? What else cannot pass through? Charged molecules are also all over the place, like chloride and sodium or sodium ions, or actually any ions can't pass through. Or one popular example would be amino acids. Now, these molecules are charged that they are so incredibly polar which is why they cannot pass through. As always, I hope this lesson was helpful to study for MCAT or just any regular science class. Make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and thank you so much for watching.